My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 37 years old, last month. My parents flew halfway across the country for my sister Claire's housewarming party. 3.5 hours in the air, exit row seats, 10 days in Scottsdale helping her settle into a second home she didn't need. 4 weeks later, my father called to tell me they couldn't make it to my wedding. The reason the 30-minute drive from Dayton to Columbus was too hard on my mother's back. Let that sit for a second. 3.5 hours on a plane to watch Claire arrange patio furniture, but 30 minutes in a car to watch their son get married was too much. I walked down the aisle anyway. 2 seats in the front row stayed empty. Aisle side. Impossible to ignore. My father-in-law stood up when the music started and took my arm without saying a word. The entire church saw the choice my parents made. No one asked about it. They didn't have to. 3 weeks later, my father showed up at my office. He was wearing the same polo he wore in Claire's Arizona photos. He was sweating. In his hands was a brown accordion folder thick enough to split at the seams. He didn't come to apologize. He didn't come to explain why a plane ride was manageable, but a short drive wasn't. He came because of money. Specifically, because of my grandmother's estate. He thought he needed something from me. He had no idea what I was about to find inside that folder. But before I tell you what was in it, you need to understand something. My wedding wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time they made the choice in public. This started the day Claire was born. I was 5 years old when they brought her home from the hospital. I remember my mother holding her, like she'd invented light itself. I remember standing in the hallway, waiting to be noticed. I learned early that I wouldn't be, and I learned something else, too. When you're the kid they call strong, what they really mean is, you don't get to need anything. Claire came home in a yellow blanket with tiny stitched flowers on the corners. I remember the smell of baby powder and hospital soap. I remember my mother's face more than anything else. She looked at Claire like she'd discovered something rare and fragile, like the world needed to be rearranged around her. No one rearranged anything for me. The first Christmas I remember clearly. I was 6. Claire was 1. I'd asked Santa for a remote control truck. Nothing fancy. Just something that moved on its own. Christmas morning. There it was under the tree. Black tires. Chrome decals. I picked it up before my mother's voice stopped me. "Ethan, you're such a big boy now. Let Claire open it." She couldn't walk yet. She couldn't hold the controller without dropping it. The truck ended up parked in her nursery beside the crib. I got a pack of socks and a paperback adventure book from the clearance rack. "You understand?" my mother said. "Claire's little. She needs more." That phrase became policy. When Claire cried, everyone moved. When I got quiet, no one noticed. If she scraped her knee, we drove to urgent care. If I sprained my wrist playing baseball. My father wrapped it in an ace bandage and told me to ice it. "You're tough," he'd say. Tough meant invisible. By the time I was 10, I'd stopped asking for things. Birthdays became predictable. Claire's parties had themes, magicians, bounce houses, custom cakes shaped like princess castles. Mine were backyard cookouts with paper plates and whatever my mother found on sale. And I learned to say thank you. When relatives complimented Claire, how creative she was. How sensitive. How special. I stood next to her and nodded. I didn't resent her. Not at first. She was just a kid. But patterns harden. Claire got new clothes every season. I wore mine until the knees thinned out. When she wanted dance lessons. My parents found the money. When I wanted to join travel baseball. The fees were a little steep this year. You'll understand someday. My father told me. Families make sacrifices. What he meant was some of us get sacrificed. I didn't fight it. I adjusted. I learned to earn what I wanted. I learned to need less. And I started paying attention. By the time high school started, the difference wasn't subtle anymore. It had paperwork, tuition statements, contracts, car titles. Claire enrolled at St. Augustine Academy, private Catholic school, small classes, college prep track. Tuition was $19,400 a year. My parents said it was necessary. She's sensitive. My mother explained. She needs structure. I went to Lincoln Public. 28 kids in a classroom. Metal detectors by the doors. Free. You're smart, my father told me. You'll do fine anywhere. Translation, we're not spending it on you. Claire got dropped off every morning in a used BMW my parents bought her sophomore year. Nothing flashy, just safe, reliable so she wouldn't feel different. I rode the bus until junior year, then picked up shifts at a hardware store so I could buy a 15-year-old Ford Ranger with rust along the wheel wells. I worked 20 hours a week during school, 30 in the summer. I stacked lumber, cleaned aisles, counted change. Every paycheck went into a savings account labeled college. Claire focused on extracurriculars. Dance team, student council, Italy club, 4 years at St. Augustine, nearly $80,000. I kept a running tally in a notebook I never showed anyone. Tuition, uniforms, the BMW, insurance. Gas. I wasn't angry yet. I was calculating. When acceptance letters came senior year, I got into Ohio State with a partial scholarship. $15,000 a year. Not enough to cover everything. I'd need loans. My parents congratulated me at dinner. My father raised a glass. See, we always knew you'd land on your feet. Claire got into the same university 2 years later. My parents paid her tuition outright. Room, board, books, meal plan. No loans, no part-time job. I filled out federal aid forms alone at the kitchen table. Borrowed $54,000 for my bachelor's degree. Signed the promissory notes without asking for help. During my junior year, there was a summer leadership program in Dublin. 3 weeks. Cost about $4,000. I'd saved $2,500 working as a resident advisor. I called my father. I just need the difference, I said. Long pause. We're stretched thin right now. Claire needs a newer car for campus. Maybe next summer. There wasn't a next summer. Claire spent her junior year abroad in Florence instead. Tuition plus travel plus living expenses. Another $28,000. I saw the photos online. Vineyard tours. Sunlight on stone streets. I spent that summer taking an extra shift load so I wouldn't default on interest payments. I graduated with honors. $54,000 in debt. Claire graduated a year later after switching majors twice. 0 debt. My parents handed her a $3,000 check at her party. At my graduation dinner, my father checked his watch halfway through dessert. We promised Claire we'd help her move into her new place. They left before the bill came. I paid it. That was the year I understood something clearly. This wasn't accidental. It was structural. Claire was the investment. I was the contingency plan. And I started keeping better records. After my bachelor's, I didn't take a break. I went straight into a master's program in organizational risk management. It was practical, marketable, the kind of degree that justified itself. Another $38,000 in federal loans. I signed for those. 2. No ceremony, no family dinner, just an online portal and a confirmation email. By the time I finished graduate school in 2014, I owed $92,000. Principal, not counting interest. Claire finished her degree the following spring. 5 years to complete it, no debt. My parents covered everything. Tuition, housing, study abroad, living expenses. At her graduation party, they rented a private room at a country club, hired a photographer, toasted her resilience. I received a congratulatory text when I finished my master's. Proud of you. No exclamation point. I didn't expect one. I started working at a regional logistics firm in Columbus as a junior compliance analyst. $42,000 a year. Entry level. I audited shipping contracts and federal safety filings. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Numbers made sense. Numbers didn't pretend. Every month, I paid $780 toward my student loans. Auto debit. Like clockwork. And every month. Starting in 2015, I sent my parents $450. They called it help with bills. I knew what it was. Guilt money. The price of being the son who made it without them. The quiet tax for not needing rescue. 10 years, $450 a month, $54,000 total. I never missed one. Not when rent increased. Not when my transmission failed. Not even the winter I had to choose between replacing my furnace or letting the loan interest capitalize. They never said thank you. It was implied. By 2021, I'd worked my way up to senior risk officer, $74,000 a year, stable, respectable, the kind of job my father could mention at church without embarrassment. But my loan balance barely moved. After nearly a decade of payments, I still owed $53,000. I knew the exact number. I checked it the way some people check sports scores. Claire, meanwhile, married a commercial real estate developer named Mark Reynolds. 6 figures, bonus structure, equity stakes. Their wedding cost nearly $40,000. My parents contributed $15,000. They asked me to front their gift an $8,000 custom dining set Claire had chosen herself. We'll pay you back, my father said. They didn't. I didn't bring it up. By then, silence was easier. I met Hannah in 2022 at a neighborhood volunteer event. She worked as a physical therapist. Practical, calm. She didn't flinch when I told her how much I owed in loans. On our 3rd date, she met my parents. After dinner, she said. They talk about your sister like she's still in the room. She usually is, I said. She didn't argue. She just noticed. The way my mother texted Claire twice during the meal. The way my father nodded at my promotion but didn't ask a single follow-up question. Hannah said something one night that stuck. You don't owe them money every month? They're my parents, I said. She didn't press it. But I started to see what she saw. And once you see a pattern clearly, it's harder to keep pretending it isn't there. By 2023, I had settled into something that looked stable from the outside. Senior risk officer, $74,000 a year. Health insurance, Retirement contributions. A small condo on the edge of Columbus with neutral walls and furniture I assembled myself. I wasn't flashy. I didn't need to be. Every month. The numbers lined up the same way. $780 to student loans. $450 to my parents. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, and whatever was left. Hannah and I saved. Slowly. I told myself the $450 was temporary, that one day they'd stop needing it. That one day they'd say, "You've done enough." They never did. When Claire and Mark bought their first house, 4 bedrooms in an upscale suburb, $525,000, my parents drove down every 6 weeks to help with the kids. They posted photos of backyard barbecues and captioned them with things like "Blessed to be Nana" and "Papa." They visited my condo twice that year. Once to drop off a box of old tax documents, once to ask if I could increase the monthly transfer because property taxes went up. I increased it to $500 for 3 months. Then went back to $450 without telling them. They didn't notice. Claire had 2 children by then. My mother FaceTimed her 3 times a week. She called me once a month, usually around the 1st, just checking in, she'd say. What she meant was, "Did you send it?" Hannah never criticized them outright. She asked questions instead. Why are you covering their bills when they just flew to Arizona because they're my parents? Does Claire send them money? No, that was the end of that conversation. In April 2024, Claire and Mark bought a vacation condo in Scottsdale. 3 bedrooms, gated community, golf course view. My parents flew out for the housewarming. Exit row seats again. 10 days. Photos every afternoon sunsets. Margaritas. Captions about pride. My wedding invitations went out 5 weeks before that trip. There was no group text about that. They bought Claire a $5,000 patio set as a gift. I saw the receipt because my mother accidentally attached it in a family email thread. That same week, I transferred $450 to their account. Hannah watched me hit send. She didn't say anything, but she took my hand afterward and held it for a long time. I told myself it didn't matter, that I wasn't keeping score, but the truth was, I always had been. And somewhere under the spreadsheets and automatic payments, something was shifting. Not anger, clarity. Claire's life kept expanding. Mine stayed efficient. Her wedding had been a production, $38,000. Vineyard venue, string quartet. 2 dresses. My parents paid for the rehearsal dinner and half the catering. My mother posted 83 photos in 3 days. When Hannah and I got engaged in August 2025, my mother's response was a single text. "That's nice. Does Hannah have good insurance? Teachers and therapists don't make much," she added later. "Just practical concerns." Claire and Mark hosted Thanksgiving that year in their Scottsdale condo. My parents flew out again, 5 days. I saw the pictures, sunlit balcony, grandkids in matching pajamas, captions about how proud they were of our girl. They didn't make it to Columbus once that fall. Claire's house in Ohio had become the hub. My parents helped repaint the nursery before her second child was born. They assembled patio furniture. They babysat overnight. They drove 2 hours without complaint. When I asked my mother if they could come down one Saturday to see the place Hannah and I were renting for the wedding reception, she hesitated. "We'll see how Dad's back feels." Her back seemed fine in Arizona. It wasn't just visits, it was tone. When Claire mentioned buying a new SUV in the family group chat, my mother responded with heart emojis and exclamation points. When I shared that I'd been promoted to regional compliance lead, a title I'd worked 10 years toward, my father replied, "Good. Stability is important. Full stop." Claire's life was narrated, mine was footnoted. In October 2025, Claire and Mark closed on another investment property. My parents sent a mass text to extended family, announcing it like a graduation. My wedding was 3 weeks away. No announcement. They flew to Scottsdale on October 23rd, 3.5 hours in the air, stayed 10 days, 50 photos posted across the trip. Day 1. So proud of our daughter. Day 4. Family time is everything. Day 8. Blessed beyond measure. I watched from my desk at work between compliance reviews, the night they returned. I texted my mother, "Welcome home. Hope the trip was good." 6 hours later. Wonderful. Travel really takes it out of us at our age. 3 weeks later. That fatigue would become the reason they couldn't drive 30 minutes to my wedding. On November 10th, 12 days before the ceremony. My mother called. "What time is it again, too?" I said. "Like the invitation says. That's in Columbus." "Yes, that's a bit of a drive. It's 30 minutes. "Well, it feels longer." I didn't argue. I didn't need to. I'd seen enough. The call ended with vague reassurance. That night, Hannah said. "They're coming." I shook my head. "No," I said, "they're not. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't hoping to be wrong. 4 days before the wedding." My office line rang. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ethan, your dad's on line 2. My father never called me at work." I picked up. "Son, we need to talk about Saturday." There it was. "What about it?" I asked. A pause long enough to confirm what I already knew. "Your mother's sciatica has been acting up. The doctor says she shouldn't sit in a car for long periods. It's 30 minutes. It's closer to 45 with traffic. There's no traffic between Dayton and Columbus on a Saturday afternoon." Silence. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. I kept my voice even. "You just flew to Arizona. That's different. How we were sitting on a plane, not driving. I let that hang there. And Claire needed us there," he added. "It was important. And my wedding isn't you'll have Hannah's whole family. You won't be alone." My hand tightened around the phone. "So that's it. Don't make this difficult. Ethan, your mother's health comes first. You've always been the strong one. You understand?" There it was again. Strong. Translation expendable. "I understand," I said. "Good. We'll send a nice gift. We'll see you at Christmas." I hung up before he could say anything else. I sat there for a full minute. Didn't move, didn't swear, didn't throw the phone. Then I opened the seating chart on my computer. Front row, 2 names. I deleted them. I didn't move the chairs to another section. I didn't fill them with someone else. I left them exactly where they were, aisle seats. Visible from every angle. Empty. I texted Hannah. "They're not coming." She called immediately. "What happened?" "I'll tell you tonight. I still had work to finish. A contract audit due by 5. A compliance report that wouldn't care about family drama. I completed both. Then I went to the restroom, locked the door, and stood at the sink staring at my reflection. I didn't cry. I just looked tired." That evening, my Uncle Robert called. "Your dad told me they're skipping the wedding." "Yeah, he's a coward. I'll be there. I'm sitting in their seats. You don't have to. If I can drive 90 minutes, they can drive 30. He hung up before I could argue. Hannah's mother called the next day. "Ethan, we're your family now. We'll fill that church." I believed her, but belief didn't erase the space my parents chose to leave behind. November 22nd, 2025. I woke up in the guest room of Hannah's parents' house. Quiet, cold light coming through the blinds. For a few seconds, I forgot what day it was. Then I remembered. I checked my phone once. No missed calls, no messages. I turned it face down on the nightstand and left it there. By 11, the house was moving. Hannah's sister was steaming her dress in the hallway. Her father, David, stood in the kitchen in a pressed navy suit, reading the same paragraph of the newspaper 3 times. He looked up when I walked in. "You ready?" he asked. "Yes, sir." He nodded once. That was enough. The church seated 80. 78 chairs were set, front row. Left side, 2 seats remained open. I had insisted they stay. The wedding coordinator asked twice if we wanted to reassign them. "No," I said. "Leave them." At 1:55 p.m., I stood at the front with the officiant, hands clasped in front of me. I didn't scan the crowd. I didn't search the back doors. I knew they weren't coming. The music started at 2:03. Hannah walked down the aisle with her father. She looked steady, calm. When she reached me, David didn't let go of her hand right away. He looked at me directly. "Take care of her," he said quietly. "I will." He squeezed my shoulder before stepping aside. As Hannah and I turned to face the room, I saw the empty chairs. They weren't subtle. Aisle seats, clean lines, no coats draped over them, no handbags. Just space. Everyone noticed. No one said anything. The ceremony lasted 29 minutes. Simple vows. No theatrics. When it was my turn to speak, my voice held steady until I said, "I choose you." I didn't look at the empty chairs again. I didn't need to. After the kiss, applause filled the room hard enough to swallow the silence they'd left behind. At the reception held in the church hall, people lined up to hug us. My Uncle Robert sat in one of the empty seats during the ceremony, but he had moved back to his assigned table afterward. He didn't try to replace what wasn't there. Hannah's mother adjusted a floral arrangement before family photos so the gap wouldn't dominate the frame. She didn't comment. She just handled it. During toasts, my best friend Mark stood up. "To Ethan and Hannah," he said. "And to the people who show up, the ones who don't measure love in convenience, the ones who choose to be here." Glasses lifted. 76 of them. 2 spaces remained empty in the front row of the photo backdrop. At 5:40 p.m., Hannah and I shared our first dance. No spotlight drama, just an old blues song her dad liked. When it ended, David stepped forward and shook my hand in front of everyone. "You're my son now," he said quietly. I nodded. No speech, no tears. That night we drove to a small bed and breakfast outside the city. I turned my phone back on at 9:52 p.m. Nothing. No voicemail, no text, no missed call explaining traffic or sudden recovery or change of heart. Just silence. I set the phone on the dresser and didn't check it again. For the first time in weeks. I slept without waiting for it to ring. The next 3 weeks were the same. No apology, no gift, no card on December 1st. I didn't send the $450 transfer. 10 years. Never missed one. That morning. My bank balance looked different with that extra money sitting there. It felt strange, not like rebellion, more like removing something that had never belonged in the first place. On December 5th, my father left a voicemail. "Ethan, I noticed the usual didn't come through. I'm sure it's an oversight. Call me back." He didn't mention the wedding. He mentioned the money. I listened to it once, deleted it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt finished. December settled in quietly. No apology, no follow-up, no attempt to explain the empty seats. Just another voicemail 3 days later. "Ethan, give me a call when you get this." He didn't mention the wedding. He didn't ask how married life was going. He asked if everything was all right with the transfer. I didn't respond. On December 2nd, a certified letter arrived at my parents' house from an estate attorney in Columbus. I didn't know that yet. My father did. My great-aunt Margaret had passed away in October. My grandmother, Eleanor's sister. According to the will, she left $52,000 to be split evenly between Claire and me. Standard probate, nothing dramatic. But during routine estate review, the attorney uncovered something else. A custodial education trust created in 1999. In my name. He sent a formal accounting request to my parents as listed custodians. That was the first time my father panicked. On December 8th, he called my office. My assistant told him I was in a meeting. He asked when I'd be available. She suggested he schedule something. He didn't. He showed up instead. Monday, December 15th, 2:47 p.m. Ethan. "Your father is here," my assistant said through the intercom. "He says it's urgent." I closed my laptop and walked downstairs. He was standing in the lobby wearing pressed khakis and the same navy polo from Claire's Arizona trip. His hair looked thinner, his jaw tighter. In his hands was a brown accordion folder, thick, overstuffed. He looked smaller than I remembered. "Can we talk?" he asked. I didn't say yes. I just led him to the glass conference room. He sat. I stayed standing. "I know you're upset about the wedding," he started. "That's not why you're here." He swallowed. "No." He placed the folder on the table between us. "It's about your grandmother's estate. My grandmother had died when I was 13. "Why are we discussing that now?" I asked. "Your Aunt Margaret's estate attorney is asking questions about a trust from 1999. "What trust?" He slid a letter across the table. Legal letterhead. Formal tone. Requesting a full accounting of a Uniform Transfers to Minors Act custodial education account. Beneficiary Ethan Walker. I read it twice. I didn't know I had a trust. My father didn't look at me. "That's why I'm here." He opened the folder. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt something sharper than disappointment. I felt the ground shift. My father pushed a stack of documents toward me. Uniform Transfers to Minors Act, State of Ohio, Custodial Education Account, established June 14th, 1999. Beneficiary Ethan Michael Walker. Initial deposit $165,000. Custodians Daniel Walker and Laura Walker. I read it once, then again. $165,000 your grandmother wanted you taken care of, he said quietly. I didn't sit down. I graduated with $92,000 in student loans. I know. Where did the money go? He hesitated. That was answer enough. Show me. He pulled out bank statements. 5 years' worth. 2009 through 2014. Withdrawal lines highlighted in yellow. August 2009, $14,000 qualified education expense. January 2010, $18,500 qualified education expense. September 2011, $21,000 qualified education expense. I opened my phone and searched tuition rates for St. Augustine Academy. The numbers matched. Private school payments. More statements. 2012, $28,000 qualified education expense. Florence Study Abroad program. Claire's year overseas. Another set of withdrawals aligned perfectly with Ohio State tuition, Claire's tuition. Every dollar tracked cleanly from my trust into her education. I looked up. You used it on her. We had 2 children, he said. Education is a family investment. It had my name on it. You were independent. You had scholarships. You were going to be fine. I was fine because I worked 40 hours a week while taking 18 credit hours. Claire needed more support. Claire needed. The phrase had aged well. I flipped through more pages. The entire balance depleted by 2014. 0 remaining. You let me sign for loans knowing this existed. We made difficult choices. You stole from me. His jaw tightened. Watch your tone. I let the silence sit there until it became uncomfortable. Then he pulled out one final document. Fresh paper. Recently printed. Beneficiary release and acknowledgement. I scanned it. I, Ethan Walker, acknowledge receipt of the full $165,000 education trust established in my name, and confirm all funds were used appropriately for my educational benefit. I released the custodians from further obligation. I looked up slowly. You want me to sign this? The estate attorney needs it to close out Margaret's probate cleanly. If you don't sign, it complicates things. For who? For everyone. Claire's share could be delayed. She's counting on it for the kids' college accounts. There it was again. Claire needed. I set the paper down carefully. You spent my future on her, I said. You let me drown in debt. You skipped my wedding. And now you want me to lie so she can get more. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. He stood, agitated. If this goes further, you could tear the family apart. The family was already torn. I stepped back from the table. Get out, Ethan. Take the form, leave the rest. He hesitated. Panic flickered across his face. Then he gathered only the release document and walked toward the door. He forgot the rest. The entire folder remained on the table. Every statement, every withdrawal, every piece of proof. He was too shaken to notice. When the door shut, I stayed still for a full minute. Then I sat down. At the very bottom of the stack, beneath the bank statements, was a cream-colored envelope. Aged, sealed, my name written in uneven handwriting. For Ethan. To be opened when you begin college. Love. Grandma Eleanor. My hands were steady when I opened it. They didn't stay that way. The letter was dated June 14th, 1999, my 9th birthday. I sat alone in the glass conference room, the office humming faintly outside, and began reading. My dearest Ethan, you came by after your party today and told me about your presence. You seemed grateful. You always do. But I watched your face when Claire showed me her new bicycle, the one you had asked for first. I see more than you think. Sweetheart? I stopped for a second. The conference room felt smaller. Your mother has always favored your sister. I don't say that to hurt you. I say it because someone needs to tell you the truth. You are not less worthy. You are not less loved. You are simply easier for them to overlook. I leaned back in the chair. The words weren't dramatic. They were steady, measured, like she had known exactly what she was doing when she wrote them. I have set aside $165,000 for your education. Not for family expenses. Not for emergencies that somehow benefit everyone but you. This money is yours. It is meant to give you choices, to give you freedom. I am required by law to name your parents as custodians. I am trusting them to honor my wishes. My jaw tightened. If they do not, if they use what belongs to you for someone else, I want you to fight. You fight for what is yours. You are capable. You are steady. You are stronger than they realize. She had underlined yours. I am also leaving you my signet ring. Your mother asked about it. I told her no. It belongs to you. Wear it, and remember that being strong does not mean accepting injustice. I read the final paragraph twice. If you are reading this, I am gone. But know this, I saw you. Every time you stepped back so someone else could shine. Every time you pretended not to mind. I saw you, and I loved you without comparison. The room went quiet in a way that felt different from silence. Not empty, settled. For years. I had wondered if I imagined it. If I was exaggerating the imbalance. If maybe I really had been the difficult one for noticing. She knew. She saw it. She tried to protect me, and they took it anyway. I didn't cry the way I had in the church bathroom weeks earlier. I sat still, breathing slow. Something shifted inside me. Not anger, not even sadness. Certainty. I had spent most of my life trying not to make things worse, trying not to escalate, trying to be the strong one who absorbed it. That ended in that conference room, when my assistant knocked softly on the glass 20 minutes later. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. You okay? She asked. No, I said, but I will be. I gathered every document into the folder and stood up. I wasn't afraid of what my parents would think anymore. I wasn't afraid of tearing anything apart. If they had violated what she entrusted to them, then this wasn't about resentment. It was about accountability, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to step aside. That night, Hannah read everything, the statements, the trust documents, the letter. She didn't interrupt, didn't soften it. When she finished, she looked at me and said, "This isn't just betrayal, it's breach of fiduciary duty. I already knew that. I just needed to hear it out loud." The next morning, I met with an attorney named Rebecca Sloan, mid-50s, precise, no wasted words. She reviewed the file in silence, underlining dates. "They violated custodial law," she said finally. "Funds designated for you were used for another beneficiary. That's misappropriation. In plain terms, theft. What are my options? Demand letter. Full accounting? Restitution with interest? If they refuse, we file suit? How long if they're smart weeks? If they fight a year? Send the letter." She drafted it that afternoon. Restitution demanded $165,000 principal, $41,000 in accrued interest. Reimbursement for documented loan interest paid. Total claim $231,000. 14-day response window. 3 days later, my mother called. We could lose the house. "Ethan, you should have thought of that in 2009. You're tearing the family apart." "The family was built on a lie," she cried. "I didn't." Claire called next. "I didn't know about the trust," she said. "You knew I had loans while yours were paid. I thought they were helping us differently." They were. With my money. Silence then. Quieter. "This is why they always said you were the strong one." I almost laughed. On January 3rd, Rebecca called. They want to settle. Full principal, full interest. They requested we waive additional punitive claims. She recommended accepting. I agreed. January 10th, 2026. I signed the settlement. My parents signed admission language acknowledging improper withdrawal of custodial funds. To pay it, they listed their house, the one they'd owned since I was in kindergarten. The first wire transfer hit my account on January 15th, 6 figures. I logged into my loan servicer portal that afternoon. Outstanding balance $53,118. I clicked Pay in Full. Confirmed. Balance $0. 10 years of payments erased in one keystroke. I paid off Hannah's remaining student debt the same day. We didn't celebrate loudly. We ordered takeout and sat on the floor of our condo, backs against the wall, letting the quiet settle. In February, we put a down payment on a small brick house with a front porch. Nothing extravagant, just ours. The second payment arrived with a small box. Inside was my grandmother's signet ring. No note. I put it on my right hand. It fit. In March, I established the Eleanor Grant Education Fund, $125,000 endowment. Annual scholarship for students attending college without family financial support, administered through Ohio State. The first recipient was a 19-year-old engineering major working 2 jobs. I handed him the award letter myself. "Use it," I told him. "Build something better." 6 months after my wedding, we hosted dinner at our new house, Hannah's parents, my uncle, friends who showed up when it mattered. I stood on the porch afterward, lights on inside, laughter drifting through the windows. I haven't spoken to my parents since the settlement. I don't know if I ever will. It still hurts. Not because I miss them, but because I understand now that I never had what I thought I did. They spent my future on the daughter they preferred. I rebuilt it. And this time, it belongs to me. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes strength isn't absorbing the damage. It's deciding not to carry it anymore. This story is a work of fiction inspired by common family dynamics and legal scenarios. Any resemblance to real persons or events is coincidental.